Finally, we have arrived at our last launch of 2025, the Sen. And like they always say, you keep the best for the last. But not this time. There's no MRT and amenities nearby. So who's gonna buy from you in the future? There is someone if their favorite color is green.
Fingers. No, those are dope.
Look at it. There's the view. So green. From another block, so green as well. From block 226, also very green. Even from block 228, also very green. Lots of green, plenty of green around. Jokes aside, despite its obvious flaws, there are certain data points that we found with regards to the Sen that might surprise you. We're going to focus our analysis on the data surrounding the Sen and utilizing our exit strategy framework to compare the Sen against other developments. If you are joining us for the first time, do check out this video where we explain in detail why and how we develop our framework. Long story short, we wanted to find the best, most data-driven way possible to provide number one, clarity on the exit strategy of a particular property. Number two, allow us to compare different properties on an apple-to-apple basis, taking the guesswork, uncertainty, and emotions out of the buying decision. So before we begin the analysis, let's do a very quick introduction of the project, right? So the Sen, developed by SL Capital Sustained Land, they have been around since 2006. Some of the more popular developments, sturdy residences over near the Farrer area. We have 3 residences near Aljunied. More recent ones, Sky Everton over at Everton Park near Spottiswoode, that area. One Mayor, coastline residences. So typically, some of the slightly smaller developments, right? I believe the Sen should be one of the biggest ones they have done so far. Okay, 5 blocks of 347 units, 19 years from 2025. So they're not eating into a lot of your lease, right? It resides in the RCR. Now, here's the interesting, right? They reside in the RCR, right? District 21. We have a 1-to-1 car park lot alignment. Yeah, so you get 1-to-1. We also have a childcare situated within the development. Right, the expected TOP 4 years time in August 2029. In terms of the bedroom split, this one we'll go into further detail later on. Here's the location, just in case you don't know, because I wasn't very familiar with the location to begin with, and that is after we did a rental over at Verdale. Before that, we have never gone to this part of Bukit Timah before. Okay, right? So I think it's sandwiched between Jalan Jurong Kecil and Upper Bukit Timah Road. Yeah, the nearest MRT, if you ask me, it's Hume MRT. Actually, it's not too far away, probably about 3 stops. I have another slide that can show you lah. Okay, so in terms of a bus, right? 2 bus stops you can reach Hume, right? If you want to head towards Beauty World, it's a little bit further. 1, 2, 3, 4 to reach Beauty World MRT. Next up, let's take a quick look at some of the perspectives for you to see how the development actually looks like, right? So it's situated very close to Bukit Timah Nature Reserve, Bukit Batok Nature Park, which is why I say there's a lot of greenery around if that's what you like. In terms of height, at 10 stories, not the tallest you're gonna get, such as the Penriths or the Altas, right? But taller than Faber residences, right? So you get about 10 stories. Still a little bit of staging over there, and I do expect that to also have a lot of staging in terms of the views, right? Inward versus the outward in terms of price staging. Okay, so that would be something interesting to kind of analyze and think about, right? Over here, so you see a good chunk of the development. If you face northwards, you will look at a lot of greenery, but do note that there's not that much greenery on this side, right? This will be a future residential plot over here. So it's one thing to note if you are looking to buy units on this stack, right? Other than that, pretty straightforward kind of what you're going to get in most other developments. In terms of the facilities, very good. We have tennis court, we have kids pool, and we have a 50 meters LED pool, so you can consider that full condo facilities. If you need more detailed information about the project, feel free to reach out to us. We're happy to share it with you, or you could click on the link below. There's a link to the website that has all the information in there. In the interest of time, we are skipping the layout analysis and diving straight into the data, since everyone else is doing that anyway. But if you like my thoughts about that, feel free to drop us a text. We could have that discussion separately. And now, let's go straight into the data. So for our exit strategy framework, the basis of which is centered a lot around the analysis of the supply in the area, their performance, their prices. Okay, now let's take a look. So what we have done is to consolidate the last 12 months transactions for all the developments in close proximity to the Sen, right? And to help everybody, what I've done was also to highlight in green the developments that are 999 or freehold, and this color in yellow, the ones that are leasehold. Okay, 99 or lesser, right? Lesser in what sense, right? The Hilford is very unique. The Hilford has 60 years from 2013, right? Interesting backstory is that was kind of the government's first idea, sell residential land to developers that are slightly lower in lease so that they can then sell it on at a cheaper price, higher risk, right? But in the end, the developers got it, sold it to the open market, everybody just went in and buy it because it's cheap, okay? Which is why you kind of don't see this anymore. Sort of like a failed experiment lah, okay? So now, we start off first with the one bedders. I'm going to show you guys in terms of ranking which ones are the most profitable by annualized returns. Okay, so take note, these transactions are past 12 months transactions. We don't want to look too far back because then that might not be indicative, okay? So you see over here, there's not that many units with transactions for the last 1 year. I think the highest transaction is for Hilford, okay, 2.5% annualized returns. We then have Foret and Notting Hill Suites lah, right? So as you can see lah, all the returns are not that great for one bedders. This one over at South Haven, I believe, is an outlier or misclassification lah. Don't think there will be a 1,800 square feet one bedder there anyways, okay? Now, moving on to the two bedders, okay? So you see from the two bedders over here, you could see primarily those that do better are the freehold or 999 years ones, right? They do better than the leasehold ones over in this area. The best performing one, Hume Park, Springdale, Highgate, South Haven. Okay, but however, bear in mind, I would take those with just one transaction with a pinch of salt, right? But Signature Park, right, the big boy over there with the most units, 934 units, right? It tends to be one of the best performing ones in that area despite its age. Okay, 6 transactions all still average about 5% annualized, average is almost $800,000 profits. Okay, the best performing leasehold one, it's the Hilford. Again, okay, at 4.7%. So this is very interesting, right? 60 years leasehold development, but perform better than the 999 ones and better than some of the freehold ones for that matter. And why so? It's because I believe there's a market for those people that just don't have sufficient budget to buy a brand new one or even a resale one, right? And then you can move in and buy a 2-bedder at an average condo of 817. You don't see that anywhere else. So there's still going to be a market for it, right? Interesting enough, right? And then you'll just rent it out for rental yield. So for rental yield, 800,000 for 2-bedders stick, despite its distance to the MRT. Okay, so some of the things just to take note over here is what I would see. You see some of the newer developments over there. Verdale, we have the Daintree over here, right? Daintree at 4.1%. In the big scheme of things, at above 4% is still not too bad, despite some of their distance to MRT, right? Like Daintree Residences, View at Kismis, Verdale, there are some a bit further, right? Foret at Bukit Timah also a bit further from the MRT, but they can still hit about close to the 4% annualized returns. It's not too bad lah. It's not too bad, right? But the freehold ones do best, right? Let's take a look at the 3-bedders, okay? So for the 3-bedders, it's a little bit more mixed. The best 3-bedder performance, Selecting Green, Sherwood, but of course, both of these are just one transaction, okay? Those with a little bit more transactions, South Haven 1, 6.2%, very, very good, right? Then we have Highgate, Foret, that's 5.8%, Verdale at 5.2%, all not too bad. In general, if you see above 4.5%, it means it's doing quite well. Above 4% is quite average, right? The worst performing ones, Creek at Bukit, Meadowview, Terrene, okay, and Daintree, the worst, but even the worst ones are above 4%, so not too bad. In terms of 4-bedders, right? 4-bedders, not a lot, right? The highest transaction one, maybe just 2 to 3 transactions, okay? And those with 2 transactions, you see for it at Bukit Timah, 5.7% is very, very good, okay, for 4-bedders. Then we have Daintree, 1 at 5.3%, can make 742,000. In that batch, 5.3% is not great, right? Because in that batch, we are competing with our Park Estas, with our Park Clement, all those, so at 5.3% is not the best. Okay, but Foret does quite well, right? Despite the fact that it's low rise, freehold, slightly further from the MRT, right? So Foret probably deserves a mention on its own. Maybe I'll do a review next time because it kind of breaks some of conventional wisdom lah to still perform quite well. Okay, Signature Park on the other hand, right, but just one transaction lah, in terms of the 4 bidders, doesn't perform as well, right? 5 bidders, don't think we need to spend too much time on that because there's just very little transactions over here. View at Kismis. So View at Kismis is very interesting. We have a client over at View at Kismis. To be honest, we never expected it to do so well. View at Kismis is very interesting, quite far from MRT. Maybe I can show everybody. Quite far from MRT, not a big development and 99 years old in a freehold area, but turned out to still do really, really well. Can show you the location. Okay, so it's not near to the MRT at all. You want to get to Beauty World MRT, you have to walk down Lorong Kismis, walk down Toi, okay, and then cut down through Jalan Jurong Kecil, right? So in distance to MRT, about 735, right? If we look at the performance, okay, for View at Kismis, you can see over here, right? Honestly, I expected it to perform like a 2 to 3% annualized farm. You look at the 3 bidders, 4.6%, the 4 bidders, no transaction, 5 bidders, 5.6%. It has kind of exceeded expectations. Why so? The quantum. Look at the quantums over here, 2.6 million for 5 bidders. Absolute no-brainer because that's equate to like a 3 bidder impact, right? For View at Kismis, 3 bidders averaging 1.8 million, right? Is your RC, typical RCR 2 bidders price. That's like your one's 2 bidders price. So at 1.8 million, 3 bidders, despite its small size, there is still demand, hence strong profitability. So conclusion here is that quantum matters. And with good quantums, right, the project doesn't have to have the best attributes to still generate healthy returns. And now let's dive into our exit strategy framework. So let me first run you guys through what are some of the parameters that we have utilized. Okay, so First and foremost, we have the PSF, okay? Then we have the quantums and we have the size, right? Deriving the quantum based on the indicative PSFs given as well as the size of the units given, okay? We then have the average profitability per annum. Why do we use this parameter? Because it's the best indication of the demand in an area. If an area has high demand, naturally the profitability will be higher. Why? Because most owners, they will look down their units at the highest possible price, right? Nobody wants to sell their units cheap, okay? But if they cannot sell the unit within a particular amount of time, they very naturally will reduce their price because they want to move on to something else, okay? So if you compare an area with higher demand, naturally units take faster to sell, the owners can hit the ideal price that they want, it translates into higher profits. Versus an area, for example, the CBD, where it takes a longer time to sell because the demand is lower, naturally the owners start cutting back on their expected sale prices, hence resulting in lower profits, okay? Next up would be the current supply of units for sale, right? So these are all the units for sale within this area of comparisons, right? The area that we are analyzing. So for example, for 3-bedroom compact, we see over here 47 units. So now in this whole area, 47 3-bedroom compacts, right? 3-bedroom compacts, typically what we do, we just use 3 bedrooms, 2 bathrooms, okay? 3-bedroom premium, 3 bedrooms, 3 bathrooms, okay? 3 bathrooms and above, and then we have the total supply of units. So these are the total supply of 2 bedders, 3 bedders being built in the area. We separate this to give us the supply ratio, because a lot of the times, and especially when I first thought about this area at the Upper Bukit Timah area, it just seems to me like there's a lot of supply area. And sometimes when people just think about it that way, they immediately then don't consider that area, right? To be fair, right, the Upper Bukit Timah area, the condos around there, prior to this new batch of like Tree Residences, Foret, the Link, for example, they didn't have a good track record. So people kind of like feel, wow, that place got a lot of supply, but yet the performance is not great and all those kind of things, right? So the whole purpose why we are diving and paying so much attention to the data is that, we want to look at, are we missing out on anything, right? And we want to be as objective as possible, okay? So yes, the area has quite a lot of units being built, but there's only just 47 3-bedroom compacts for sale, 44 3-bedroom premiums for sale. You add this together, just 80 plus units in 3,800 3-bedders built. That's still a pretty fair percentage, right? Later on, I will share with everyone how this scores compare with the other launches in this period. Okay, and so with all this, we derive an exit score. The exit score is location specific, nothing to do with the price, right? Notice it's just profitability units for sale. Okay, and the lower the score, the better, right? It means high profits, low supply, right? High demand, low supply. Okay, and then we jump into the average, median, and surrounding quantums for each particular unit type. We derive that from here. You can see, right? Average, median, and highest 3 bidders transacted, and it appears over here. Okay, and then we measure the gap between the potential entry price here and the gap between the existing data being transacted in that area. Okay, we also have the surrounding PSFs. Okay, and at the end of the day, the gap score tells us, based on your particular entry, how far away are you from the existing transactions, right? A negative score tells you are somewhat cheaper than the rest. A positive gap score tells you that you are more expensive than the rest. Okay, so similarly, the smaller the gap score, the more negative the gap score, the better. So I won't jump into them one by one, but on first glance, what you notice is that the larger units have a better exit score. Typically, you go under 100 is considered quite good. You go above 100 is not so good lah. So personally, I would try to avoid the 1 bidders over there, the 2 bidders over there. Similarly, right? If you have a pretty average exit score, you try to have a good gap score. In this sense, despite the exit score not being great, the gap score is also not great. So at 1.5 million, issue is that there's not much alternatives around, right? So to me, I may then avoid going for the 2 bidders altogether, right? Probably look at something over in resale. Okay. For 3 bidders, yes, right? Better that you get something a little bit smaller as compared to something that is bigger. Okay. But what's more important really is that how does the Sen score match up with the other launches? Okay, let's take a look. So what I have done is to put all of them together, comparing with the other developments, right? We start off straight at the 2 bidders because 1 bidder, quite a lot of them don't have. Okay, so in terms of 2 bidders, right? Faber, Sky, Penrith, Zion, and the Sen. So as you can see, I've already ranked for you. The Sen will still be better. Okay, and this is our mystery launch, not launched yet, likely to be next year, right? So this guy is going to be ranked 3rd. The Sen will be ranked 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, better than Zion, right? In terms of the exit score, in terms of gap score, is surprisingly not too bad, only at 1%, okay, which is not as good as Zion, not as good as Faber, but other than that, is better than Sky, our mystery project, and Penrith. Okay, now we have, in terms of 3 bidders, okay, for ranking, we have Penrith, the Sen ranking 2nd, better than Faber, Zion, and Sky, right? Our mystery project at 33 will come in at rank 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, right? So in terms of exit score, the Sen's exit score is quite good for the 3 bidder, okay? But in terms of gap score, right, it will lose out to Faber, Zion, and Sky, but it will beat our mystery project and also Penrith. For 4 bidders, okay, the Sen, you see, also does quite well at 45%, right? So exit score ranked 3rd behind our mystery project. In terms of gap score, at 20 is not as good as Faber, not as good as Zion, not as good as Sky, not as good as our mystery project. So it's the 2nd worst in terms of the gap score. But over at 20%, it's kind of what you expect the minute you reach the RCR/OCR lah, right? So you can see over here, in terms of exit score, across the board, the Sen is actually not bad. I would say it's on the top half, especially if you go into the 3 and 4 bidders. In terms of 2 bidders, it's not as good as the rest. Now, the issue is that the ones that we ranked earlier also already, so nothing much to bite, right? But if you want to compare, right, why I have our mystery project over here is you can compare how does the Sen compare with the mystery project, right? So if you see it's ranked lousier than the mystery project, probably you can wait for our mystery project, best project for next year. If it's better than that, for example, the 3 bidders, provided the entry price is good, okay, 4 bidders not as good, yeah, then you can have to think carefully. Now, that's the quantitative part of the analysis out of the way. Here are the list of qualitative considerations that you might want to think about. I'm going to bring your attention to probably two key points, okay? First, it's transformation. So let me share with you how I kind of see the entire transformation surrounding the Sen, all right? So the Sen, we are located somewhere around here. As we zoom out, here are what are some of the key transformations that will impact the Sen, right? So first and foremost, we have this huge transformation over here nearer to this is the old race course, right, over at Bukit Timah. That being said, this is slightly going to be, it's going to be priced higher. The overall narrative, I feel, and attractiveness about the price point over at the Sen, really, it's the good entry price, okay? So I'm paying more attention to what's on the left side. And if we zoom out, what we have is all the HDBs over at the Bukit Patok, Bukit Panjang area, and of course, this huge chunk of future potential supply coming in for Tengah, right? Because of all the upgraders from Tengah, Bukit Patok, when they want to move further downwards, they are kind of blocked off over here in terms of demand because it's just so much more expensive. There's not much new supply, and if the new supply comes in, it's still going to be really, really expensive. So the options coming in here, yes, there's going to be people that can afford it, but not that many, okay? If they want to start coming down to Clementi, again, right, the Clementi prices, we all know, very, very high. Once you go further down, there's actually a lack of supply over on this side already. Bukit Merah, Queenstown, Clementi, also not much supply anymore, right? Which drives a lot of the more budget-friendly, affordable options to come in towards the Dairy Farm, Hillview, and Upper Bukit Timah area. So what I call this is the catchment of demand. This is very much like, albeit not like for like, let me share with you if we come onto the other side of the island, right? How sort of Woodley has benefited from all the upgraders coming in from Sengkang, Punggol, okay? There's not much supply at Serangoon, Hougang. Demand doesn't really go towards the Ang Mo Kio Bishan area because they are expensive, okay? We are blocked off on this side. So they all travel down the NEL, and then once they hit Toa Payoh, it's expensive already. That's why a lot of the demand end up focused around where? The Potong Pasir area, hence driving the prices there up significantly, right? Over in the last couple of years, we have seen something like that happen also in terms of the catchment of demand from Sembawang, Yishun coming southwards over here. They are stopping off at Ang Mo Kio and Bishan because it's expensive, hence the huge take-up rate over at the Springleaf area and Lentor area. I see similarities here as well. Huge upgrader demand. Actually, you're going to catch all the way up from Woodlands side, right? They're going to flow down this way, flow down this way. Actually, you see Choa Chu Kang, Bukit Panjang there, also not much supply in terms of the condos, right? So if you do have, right, this is on my second point, if you do have a comfortable holding period, you're looking at something for own stay, I believe a larger unit at the Sen makes sense, pun intended, right? At the Sen makes sense for you, right? 3 and 4 bedders. If you are looking at some of the smaller units, I think there might be better value elsewhere, okay? So this is some of the qualitative analysis points that I want to talk about, right? So for the rest of them, it kind of really depends on your investment horizon and really down to your specific needs and requirements. Now, let's take a look at the Sen's indicative prices and how they measure up against the other launches. So what I've done is to consolidate all the land costs of all the projects coming up, right? This may be of interest to you as well if you're also looking at projects from next year. We already have the results of the launches that have been sold this year, okay? So let me break it down for you guys, right? We start off perhaps first with the launches this year. I've broken them down from the OCR, RCR, and CCR. We have their land costs. Okay, we also have the Edge Prop break even, right? So Edge Property has a algorithm that they utilize to kind of calculate what's the estimated break even that the developer have to sell the development at, right, to break even on their costs. Okay, so then we have the average PSF sold at launch, right? So these are the answers that we have already gotten. From there, we can back calculate to see what was the percentage markup from the average as a function of the land cost. What's the percentage markup as a function of the Edge Prop break even utilizing the average PSF sold, right? So these are the percentages as you can see. Okay, then what I've also done one step further was because we also have the indicative prices, right, from when the developers first launched the preview of the projects. Okay, and this is also to show you what's the percentage difference between the average PSF sold as a function of the indicative prices, right? Because at the end, I'm surprised at how many people still get so excited about the indicative prices, okay? But as you can see, on average, the eventual average sale price is about 11% higher than your indicative prices. So whatever you see right now, I'm probably going to put the Sen's indicative prices on the screen, okay? Just factor 10% higher if you want the average, right? If you want even higher than that, right, what's likely to be the top end of the range, you can times about 15%, okay? So now, moving up, right, as you can see, the Sen is, in terms of land cost, is the second cheapest one left on the market. The other cheaper one is the integrated development at Tengah Garden Avenue, right? But because that is an integrated development, the likely cost or the likely price will be even higher than this. Why? You can just take a look at Park Town residences, right? Despite the land cost being lower than the rest, okay, you see the eventual average sale price was higher, right? So on typically the developers will have a higher markup for their integrated developments, right? So just pay a little bit of attention to that, which is why essentially from now moving onwards, I don't expect any developments to come in cheaper than the Sen already. Yeah. Like I mean, next cheapest is like 80 PSF PPR, which is over at Lentor Gardens already, right? So you have a limited budget. This is perhaps your last shot. The lowest indicative price indicated was 2199, okay? And based on the average from the land cost and the age plot break even as a function of what's the average that we have counted over here, I expect it to land at about 2450 or 2450 PSF, okay? So you can utilize this in your calculations. Next up, the 3 things you like and don't quite like about the Sen. If you've enjoyed the video so far and have benefited some way or another, we'll be really thankful if you could hit that like and subscribe button as you help out the channel a ton. Now, back to the video. On to the first thing we like about the Sen, it's its entry price. As I've shown you earlier on in the video, everything else moving forward will have a higher land cost, or Tengah has a lower land cost because it's an integrated development, and as we've seen with Park Town, the markup on the land cost is going to be significantly more than what we see at the Sen, likely bringing its price to be higher than that of the Sen. As a matter of fact, if we look back, the Sen has the second lowest land cost of all the launches this year, right? Beating only Canberra Crescent residences. I've made an interesting observation recently. If you want to find out what's the average affordability in terms of per square foot and quantum in the resale market, all you need to do is to take a look at recently MOP ECs. I've analyzed them, and having tracked back the past 2 cycles, we are taking a look at the 100 Palms folks, the River Cove guys, versus one cycle back, the Vision Air Brownstone folks, right? They tend to average on the low end into about 5% annualized gains from the day they buy. And if you take 5% annualized linearly over 8 years, because they have to hold 3 years to build 5 years of MOP, you take about 40%, right? 5% times 8, about 40%. You add that onto the average PSF being sold in the newer batch of ECs, your Auto Place lah, right? So on and so forth, right? At 1750, you just times that out, it's going to give you 2,450 per square foot. Okay, so this is where we are likely going to be at on the average basis in about 8 years' time. So your likely entry over here, let's say you can come in at about 2,200. I don't think you can go too far wrong. Even if your entry price is at about 2,400, you're not going to be competing with a lot of ECs in and around your area, because technically this is still considered the RCR. So it's still pretty safe, right? The narrative and the thesis that we are going to utilize in our entry to the Sen really is the lowest hanging fruit thesis, right? And this has worked pretty well over the years. We are taking a look at High Park residences from the 2018 batch, and then you are taking a look at Treasure at Tampines over the post-COVID batch. Onto the second thing we like about the Sen is its surprisingly good exit score. I must admit, this came up to better than I expected it to be. And if that's for me, I think it will surprise everyone as well, right? Because if you ask around, people always feel that the area, the properties don't do well, right? But thankfully, they kind of turned the corner Perhaps a little bit of the transformation over at Beauty World, a little bit of the new MRT over at Hume, I think has kind of brought the demand there up a little bit. And also the new supply coming in to be a better supply as compared to your Notting Hill Suites, your Creek at Bukit kind, right? At least your new Foret, Daintree, Verdale, they have more regular layouts. And now with the Sen coming in as the first harmonized project over there with the more efficient layouts and whatnot, it will potentially turn the corner, right? But my conviction is more so for the 3 and 4 bedder. On to the third thing we like about the Sen is its catchment of demand for HDB upgraders from the north and from the west, right? Like I mentioned earlier on in the video, anybody upgrading from Woodlands, okay, down south, your Choa Chu Kang, your Bukit Panjang, and your Bukit Batok, they honestly don't really have much options, right? Because Bukit Timah is too expensive, Queenstown is already quite expensive, so they are left with kind of this area. This is kind of where they are cutting off. Okay, but you might be asking, hey, but then why last time the dairy farm area, Hillview area, the performance is not that good? Okay, I will boil that down to the quality of the supply, the quality of the product in the past. Okay, you have your Upper Bukit Timah terrible quality like Notting Hill Suites like Creek at Bukit, right? And last time the Hillview one, Kingsford, Hillview Peak. Honestly, the options aren't great. Right, but we have seen the supply kind of turn the corner. We have better quality products, better layouts coming in, which is why you see things like View at Kismis, Foret, the Link, Daintree Residences, Dairy Farm, Midwood, starting to turn the corner and turn a really decent profit. They are not underperforming the rest of Singapore by a whole lot. Okay, so now this tells me that there's sufficient demand. They're just looking for the right products. Okay, and then lastly, we have Tengah to boot. Okay, because in the past, right, of course, we have a lot of new BTOs coming in at Choa Chu Kang, a lot of new BTOs coming in at Bukit Panjang, but I feel the volume of upgraders perhaps isn't as high as what you kind of get in the northeastern part of Singapore, right? Which is why the performance over here as compared to the northeastern part of Singapore is a little bit lagging. But now here's the thing, right? Over at Tengah, we're going to have a lot more upgraders coming in the next couple of years. Now, this will benefit, right? I sort of consider this the hinterland, right? Between the upgraders over here and the more expensive areas over here. Onto the 3 things we don't quite like about the Sen. Point number 1, perhaps the most obvious one of them all, is the lack of amenities and MRT. If you're looking for own stay and you need amenities and MRT, then of course the Sen is going to be out. But if you're looking at it more from an investment point of view, there have been tons of examples. Perhaps you could put some onto the screen that have shown you that you don't really need to be near the MRT or even near the amenities to yield good profits, as long as you have the right entry price. On point number 2, on what we don't quite like about the Sen is its potential need for a slightly longer holding period, especially if you are looking for investment. Due to its lack of MRT and amenities, you got to kind of depend on what happens in the surrounding to push your prices up. When we're talking about land sales in and around the area, the transformations materializing, you're talking about the transformation to the east, right, which is your Bukit Timah, the old race course transformation. You're also looking for Tengah to come into fruition, right, and more of the HDB demand moving into your area. Okay, and on point number 2 is that units over at that area, and I'm talking about that big area of Dairy Farm, Hillview, and Upper Bukit Timah, they tend to take a slightly longer time to sell. Okay, so if you're looking at a potential exit of 4 years, you're hoping for an exit of 4 years, you might want to consider looking elsewhere. And the point number 3 on what we don't quite like about the Sen, no Pei Hwa. Okay, so there is already stiff competition in the area. Now, if you look at the Hume, those units near to the Hume MRT, they have the benefit of the MRT already. Yeah, and if you're looking at units closer to the MRT over at the Beauty World side, they also have the benefit of Pei Hwa. So if you have your target audience is somebody looking to buy the area to be within 1 km of Pei Hwa, unfortunately, you have to deal with competition from Foret, Daintree. Yes, they are a little bit older, but they are catering into pretty similar quantums. Okay, so you then got to make sure that your entry price is very, very safe as compared to the surrounding, right? Because you cannot cater to upgraders or anyone looking to buy for Pei Hwa. And with that, we've come to the end of the video. Thank you so much for joining us. If you have benefited, we'll be really thankful if you can hit that like and subscribe button as you help out the channel a ton. If you'd like to take a look at any of the research that we have done or any of these collaterals that we have done for sellers, buyers, investors, feel free to drop us a text. We're always happy to share. And of course, if you find all of this overwhelming and you just hope to have a quick summary, something easy to understand, and you can resonate with our systematic, data-driven approach to portfolio planning and property purchases, we are always here to help.